NZBA collapse exposes limits of voluntary climate finance. The collapse of the Net Zero Banking Alliance marks a turning point in climate finance. The Net Zero Banking Alliance, NZBA, officially dissolved on October 3, 2025, after its members voted to abandon the alliance's membership model and cease operations immediately. What was once billed as the financial sector's flagship climate initiative has become a cautionary tale about the fragility of voluntary coalitions under shifting political winds, from ambition to attrition. Launched in 2021 under the UN Environment Programme's finance arm, NZBA aimed to align banks' lending, investing, and capital markets activities with net zero targets by 2050, backed by interim sectoral targets and disclosure rules. At its peak, the alliance included more than 140 banks globally. Yet cracks appeared early. Major U.S. banks, among them J.P. Morgan Chase, Citi, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, and Wells Fargo, began to exit in late 2024 and early 2025, citing concerns over legal risk, shifting political environment, and regulatory backlash. UBS followed in August 2025, explaining that it no longer needed an external coalition to guide its climate strategy. By August, operations had effectively paused while remaining members debated whether to reconstitute NZBA as a looser framework. Why the alliance collapsed. The unraveling of NZBA reflects deep structural and strategic vulnerabilities, political blowback, and legal threats. In the U.S., Republican-led critiques of ESG and climate-aligned finance intensified after the return of Donald Trump. Some legislators accused banks in the alliance of colluding to restrict fossil fuel financing, raising antitrust concerns. Under political pressure, banks saw participation in NZBA as a reputational or legal liability rather than a virtue. Weak enforcement and loopholes. From the outset, NZBA commitments were voluntary, with no strict penalties for non-compliance or exit. The rules for alignment and disclosure were flexible and often narrow in scope. When pressure mounted, members simply walked away. The absence of binding accountability mechanisms meant the alliance's credibility rested solely on member consensus. The illusion of collective cover. For many banks, NZBA membership served partly as a shield, offering reputational legitimacy while deferring to regulators instead of taking bold action. Some critics argue the alliance functioned more as a defensive posture than a driver of radical change. Internal fractures in ambition. By early 2025, remaining members proposed diluting the original 1.5 degrees Celsius alignment requirement and shifting toward a looser framework model. That push sparked more departures, including from Triodos, which cited inadequate urgency. The ambition that once unified members eroded under compromise. Broader lessons for climate finance. The collapse of NZBA is more than an organizational failure. It is a signal that voluntary climate coalitions in finance are vulnerable when political incentives change. Though academic studies find some climate associations help firms adopt pro-climate practices without financial harm, they also find no clear reductions in fossil fuel funding among members. Without a coordinating body, banks are likely to diverge. Some may continue ambitious transition paths, others may revert to slower or opportunistic strategies. The collapse intensifies calls for regulation over voluntarism. Legal mandates for financed emissions reporting, transition planning, and enforcement may become the only resilient path forward. You've been listening to Sustainability Soundbites presented by E+E Leader. For partnership opportunities, reach out to a member of our team.